Now we'll write how to counter inflation. How to counter inflation. First one. By decreasing the indirect taxes, in bracket you will write using fiscal policy, and by increasing the direct taxes. So first you have to decrease the indirect tax, then decrease the indirect taxes and then increase in the direct taxes. Government will able to counter inflation. Government will able to counter inflation. Next point. By increasing the key policy rates, in bracket you write monetary policy. By increasing the key policy rates, RBI can control inflation. First one. Do you have any idea about monetary policy and fiscal policy? If I'll ask you which is a faster way to control inflation? If I'm experiencing inflation right now and I have to counter inflation in just 10 days, 15 days or maybe 20 days or 1 month, which policy should I adopt? Monetary or fiscal policy? I'll explain in detail later, but I'm just asking if the point comes. Yes? Anyone? Monetary policy. Monetary. Everyone is with monetary policy? Why there's a biasness towards RBI? It is fiscal policy. Because monetary policy will take time. RBI will reduce the interest rate if banks are following or not. If banks are following, it means it should convert the same policy rate in terms of interest rate. So it will take a much longer time. But if you reduce indirect taxes and increase direct taxes or vice versa, you will counter inflationary or deflationary situation, because it will have an immediate effect. If you increase direct taxes, if you increase the income tax, it will have an immediate effect. Getting my point? Okay. Sometimes, but generally the main task of controlling inflation is of monetary policy. But when monetary policy is unable to control the inflation at the time of hyperinflation, we'll discuss types of inflation, then fiscal policy has to come in. Example is 1933, Great Depression. At that time, monetary policy was a failure, total failure. So Keynes adopted the... Yes. We used fiscal policy. We means USA used fiscal policy. Yes. Next point. By making stricter regulation against hoarders and speculators. Next, by unearthing the black money, although it is very difficult, but we can write by unearthing the black money. Next one, by importing essential commodities by importing essential commodities. For example, you can write in bracket, India imported pulses in 2016. Next one, by putting restrictions on exports of essential commodities. By putting restriction on exports of essential commodities. In bracket you will write onion in 2013. Onion in 2013. Clear? Full stop. These are the few remedies or the solutions with policymakers. Number one is your maybe taxes. Number two is your interest rates. Generally we are using these two. But third, fourth, fifth, like importing essential commodities, these are short-term measures. If you are experiencing shortage of pulses right now, what will you do? You will not use interest rate. You will not use taxation. First of all, there should be availability of essential commodities. Like ongoing flood in Kerala. What's the most important need? Food. So you cannot do things like this. First you have to normalize the situation. So then you can proceed. Now you write types of inflation. Next subheading, types of inflation. So we have already written the definition of inflation. So we will write deflation. There are two terms, deflation and disinflation. So first you write deflation. You can write on your own if you want to try. Simple, opposite of inflation. What will you write? Write with the reference of your previous definition. Turn back your pages. Write on your own. Done? Persistent decrease in the general average price level. It means if you experience falling in the price level, then there is a situation of deflation. Now you write one more line. In other words, after that, in other words, there is a negative trend. There is a negative trend of prices in the economy. There is a negative trend in the prices of the economy. Now the second point, that is disinflation. Have you ever heard about this word disinflation? Important term. Newspapers are frequently using this term, disinflation. And Indian economy has been experiencing this situation. Disinflation means, so you write, it refers to the situation It refers to a situation where economy experiences fall in the rate of inflation. Where economy experiences fall in the rate of inflation. Full stop. In bracket, if you want to write reduction in the inflation rate. A reduction in the inflation rate. From 5% to 2%. From 5% to 2%. Getting my point? So if you experiences fall in the rate of inflation, the situation is known as disinflation. And what is deflation? If you will experience negative trend in the prices, it means decrease. So if you experience inflation from 5% to 2%, it is a situation of disinflation. If you will experience inflation from 5% to minus 2%, situation is deflation. Clear? Reflation. It refers to a situation. Reflation. It refers to a situation where an economy experiences rise in the price level, with simultaneous rise in the production of goods and services. With simultaneous rise in the production of goods and services. What's the difference between inflation and reflation? Anyone? It means whenever demand is increasing, it is accompanied by equivalent increase in the production of goods and services. This means supply. So there will be no mismatch. So reflation is the situation which comes after deflation. We have already written stagflation, but we are discussing, so we'll write again. Stagflation. It refers to a situation where an economy witnesses simultaneous occurring of stagnant growth as well as rise in the prices. Next one is inflationary gap. So right, it is a situation. Where the demand of goods and services, goes beyond the capacity of an economy to produce the same kind of goods and services. The same kind of goods and services. Full stop, that's it. So it is actually not a good situation where I will say that you should study 25 hours a day. That is beyond the capacity. It should be 24 plus 1. So it means if we consider as an agriculture production, if the demand is 300 million tons of food grains and your economy is able to produce only 273 million tons of food grains, what will you do? You have to import. But in some circumstances, when there is no availability of these kind of goods, in agriculture you have an option of import. Then this is a very grim situation, very difficult situation for the economy. The demand is going beyond the ability of production. The demand of smartphone in India obviously goes beyond India's capability to produce those smartphones. Okay? That's it. Any other term? If you have any doubt in any of these, no? Okay. So you write the next. Next heading is methodologies to calculate types of inflation. These are creeping inflation, walking inflation, running inflation, and hyperinflation. Do I have to dictate that? Not very important. Creep, लिख लो चलो फिर भी. लिख लो. So write the heading. Inflation and its characteristics. Inflation and its characteristics. वो कभी कोई पूछता नहीं है, इसलिए मैं लिखा नहीं रहा. So first one, you write creeping inflation. Creeping inflation. Shall I write on board? So, creeping inflation, where inflation rate is in the bracket of 0 to 3%. In some books, you will find 0 to 5%, but it is wrong. Okay, I don't want to name that book, but 0 to 3% is the figure, because creeping inflation is experienced by Western economies. I'm giving the evidence that why it is wrong. I'm not just saying, because if I'll say it is wrong, it must be wrong, but I'm giving evidences. Why? 0 to 3% is the term coming from Western economies. You can never see that America is experiencing more than 3% of inflation. Japan last year experienced negative inflation. So 0 to 3% is creeping inflation. So you write one line in front of creeping inflation. Well, that is negative inflation. आपने खुद बोला. That is negative inflation. So you write, it is considered as a good. Wait. What I said? It considered as a good factor for investment, because this little increase in the prices, give boost to the sentiments of the investors. Getting my point? Then 3 to 10% is walking inflation. So walking inflation, you write one line. Walking inflation is generally experienced by developing countries, and if it is not controlled in time, then it can create, disturbances in the economy. What kind of disturbances? What kind of disturbance? आपको कोई वर्ड समझ नहीं आ रहा, मैं पहली क्लास से बोल रहा हूँ कि आपको पूछना है. What kind of disturbances? If I'll say inflation creates disturbances in the economy. मैं सब बता चुका हूँ. Imports. No, think from basic. What's the biggest demerit of high inflation?
Affecting the life of lifestyle.
Obviously, eroding the purchasing power. ठीक है? This is the biggest disturbance. आपको पता चले कि आज prices, whenever you take food, जैसे आप लोग अगर यहाँ अकेले रहते होंगे तो you are taking some tiffin services और थाली जो भी खाते हैं, एक दिन वो 60 की है, next day 70, third day 80, 90. Inflation will cause number one problem, it will erode your purchasing power. This is the biggest disturbance. So if it will go beyond this limit, this bracket, first and the most important thing is eroding purchasing power. You will lose confidence on your currency. Next is running inflation. Running inflation. Bracket is 10 to 20%. Write one line. It is not a regular phenomena. But countries do experience. It is not a regular phenomena, but countries do experience this kind of inflation, particularly in food prices. First off, do we have any example with India's perspective? Onion, pulses for agriculture commodity. Do you remember the time of 2013-14 when there was a havoc against government that prices has been on rise, what will I do? So there was a big trade deficit, current account deficit. Situation was getting worse and worse. So at that time, the normal inflation rate, which is still in today's time period, it is around 4.8%. This is the exact figure given by MPC, 4.8%. At that time, the actual inflation rate, that is headline inflation, we'll discuss in few minutes. Headline inflation was 9%. But talking about food prices, 15%, 18%. Inflation on the basis of food prices. So India experienced running inflation. Next one, last one, hyperinflation. It is a situation It is a situation where monetary authority is unable to control the prices. It is a situation where monetary authority is unable to control the situation of price rise, and people will lose the confidence in that currency. People will lose the confidence in that currency. Full stop. People started investing in dead assets. Dead assets. In bracket you will write what? Gold. Or any kind of bullion. You understand bullion? Gold, silver, diamond, etc. come under all one category known as bullion. Dead assets. Because money locked in those assets and you cannot mobilize that fund. You will not use gold biscuits for investment. You have locked up money in those gold biscuits, jewelry, etc. So the mobilization of funds, what we have seen in the first class, circular flow, mobilization of saving into investment. So that money which we have invested in dead asset is actually outflow from circular flow. Land is not, because the value of land has been increasing. You can use land. You can give on rent. Land we cannot see. Hyperinflation. Do we have any example in India's case of hyperinflation? Any idea? I'm not asking. We cannot say hyperinflation. We can say running inflation. Hyperinflation is beyond 20%. Example is Germany after Second World War. Recent example we have of Zimbabwe, when people lost the confidence in the currency. So Indian people never lost their confidence in currency. Greece we can say, but not inflation. They lost confidence in their own currency, but they switched to euro. So we cannot say the problem of hyperinflation. Best example is Germany, and recent example is Zimbabwe. Do we have other examples like Somalia also using dollars? Because there are a lot of autonomous regions in Somalia that is not at all under control by monetary authority. So there are few examples, but we can say that formal examples are like Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe was using rupee. Zimbabwe was using 6 major currencies apart from their currency because people lost their confidence. So dollar, euro, rupee, Chinese yuan, the part of 6 currencies. So you can buy anything of those 6 currencies. So weird, I don't know what was they were doing. Done, that's it. Any explanation for this? Now write the heading, methodologies to calculate inflation. I'll take 10 more minutes. Is it okay? किसी क्लास है क्या अभी 11 बजे कहीं और? नहीं? हाँ. Best example, the night of 8th November, what happened to 500 and 1000 rupee note? You lost the confidence. जो बंदे दिवाली पे उनकी पूजा करते हैं वो कैसे कैसे फोटोज भेज रहे थे व्हाट्सएप पे. जनरल वही तो देखते हैं ना. इफ देयर इज नो एक्सेप्टेंस ऑफ द करेंसी, वी विल लूज कॉन्फिडेंस. गेटिंग माई पॉइंट? 500 रुपये आप किसी को दे रहे थे, कोई ले ही नहीं रहा, उसका रिलेवेंसी खत्म हो गया. Actually, government betrayed all of us. It was written on that note. I promise to the bearer this. Sign थे किसी गवर्नर के. That should not be the case. 86% of the currency. although it was not a bad policy, but think about implementation. In the crash course, I've dictated every minute detail. On 8th November, the motive was different. After 7 days, then again on 20th, then again in मन की बात, 4 ऑब्जेक्टिव वहीं से आए हैं. Digitalization, the concept of digitalization came on the last Sunday of November. That is मन की बात. Sudden, what? Implementation is very difficult. I'm not blaming policymakers, but you cannot forecast that scale of havoc that you have created. There are few good points, increase in the formalization, but you have to sustain that. How will you sustain? By making good policies. How? If you have database. Now what is the benefit? Biggest benefit of demonetization according to me is collection of database. Now you can track the activities. But what is happening is not, obviously not in public. हो रहा हो अच्छी बात है, बट पब्लिक में जाएगा वही तो अपन को पता चलेगा. So you have to make policies, you have to do something. If 99.6% of currency went back to RBI, what you have gained? Nothing. Economic GDP growth went down. There was a lot of problem. We cannot discuss this thing, but you know everything. So, shall we continue or wind up? New methodology, it will take around 1 hour. So we'll start tomorrow. Tomorrow is a holiday. 22nd, yes. Timetable में तो कर दो.